But the Torah reading this week that we just read right now for Monday, read the Torah Monday and Thursday, is all about Moshe going to Pharaoh and saying, let my people go. The story of the Exodus from Egypt served as the principal inspiration for the civil rights movement. And on the night before Martin Luther King was murdered and assassinated by a white supremacist monster named James Earl Ray, out at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, he gave the mountaintop speech, the famous mountaintop speech, and of course it was all about Moses. We know the part where he says, "I've gone over the mountain, I've seen the promised land, I may not get there with you, but you as the people will get to the promised land. Tonight I'm fearing no man, longevity has its place, but tonight I'm fearing." We know that part. That's the famous part of the speech. It's one of the most famous American speeches of the 20th century. The part we don't know is at the very beginning of the speech, where he actually recounts the Jewish exodus from Egypt, which is remarkable. And he gives a very detailed, it just shows you how this story of Moses and Pharaoh not only inspired so many, quote, Negro spirituals during slavery, but was the narrative that the civil rights leaders used in inspiring the movement. From the time I was a little boy, I've been fascinated by the memory of Martin Luther King. By the time I studied his speeches, and I memorized many of his speeches, and then I decided to take my kids on an RV trip to the sites of his great speeches. We went to the Mason Temple, where he gave the mountaintop speech on April 3rd, 1968. Of course, we went to the Lincoln Memorial. Today they mark off the exact spot where he gave the I Have a Dream speech on August 25th, 1963. It was a Wednesday. He had given that speech before I Have a Dream, and he really was supposed to give a different speech that day. He wrote out a different speech the night before when he arrived in Washington. But he started using the cadences of I Have a Dream, and although he had said it before, never like that, and it became the most famous American speech of the 20th century. And he dreamed a very biblical dream, a dream of everyone being equally God's children, a dream of America not signing, as he said, a counterfeit check for freedom and liberty that only applied to some and bounced from the bank on others. And he ultimately, of course, paid with his life. But it's one thing that I want to focus on, and then we're going to we'll continue davening. When I took my kids to the Lorraine Motel, right outside, a week after he was murdered, his best friend Ralph Abernathy put a big slab of stone, and it's there till today. And it says, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Come, let us slay him, and let us see what shall become of his dreams." And of course, that's from the story of Joseph, the dreamer. "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Come, let us slay him. Let us see what shall become of his dreams." Joseph's dreams were later all fulfilled. He became the viceroy to Egypt. His brothers did bow down to him. Martin Luther King's dreams were also fulfilled in that America became a much more just society. We still have a ways to go. We all know that. We all saw what happened this summer. In fact, members of the Floyd family are going to be part of the World Values Network Gala this year on February 18th, which is consecrated this year to African American Jewish brotherhood and friendship and kinship. So we still have a way to go. But Martin Luther King did see so much of this dream realized, but he paid for it with his life. But there was a big difference between Martin Luther King and Joseph. Joseph had this great government office. He was the most powerful man in the land. The amazing thing about Martin Luther King is he never held any title except Reverend. He was the head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC. But before so many of the African American leaders and the civil rights movers migrated into politics, John Lewis and James Clyburn and Jesse Jackson, and they went from many of them from the church into actual politics. They became representatives, congressmen. Now Raphael Warnock of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, King's successor in the pulpit, is now a senator, a United States senator. King never pursued a political path. He never had power. His power came from his oratory. His power came from his ability to make people march. It's actually a remarkable thing that the most influential American of the 20th century had not a stitch of power except the following that he built through the power of oratory, the power of words. We Jews have always understood the power of words. Moshe Rabbeinu was a stutterer. He couldn't speak well. But yet, the Talmud says, whenever he would speak in God's name, he would speak prophecy, suddenly he would speak mellifluously, fluently. So the people knew it was coming from God because he had no stutter. Words are extremely powerful. Today we remember the great life of Martin Luther King. I know some of Martin Luther King's children. I've met them, and I had the great honor of preaching in the Martin Luther King Chapel at Morehouse College. And that day, Coretta Scott King was there, Martin Luther King III was there. I met Coretta Scott King, and I thought to myself, to the world he's an icon, Martin Luther King. But to them, he was a husband, he was a father, 5 children, orphaned at such a young age. by this disgusting, vile James Earl King. I was really surprised that later in life Dexter King went to the prison where James Earl Ray was kept and he actually forgave him. Of course, it's his father. He has that prerogative.
Christianity.
We as America can never forgive him. James Earl Ray has died now and gone straight to hell. But for the rest of us who celebrate the life of Martin Luther King, we should look to the Torah as he did.